So, Andrei, what's that? Where's all the AWS accounts?
Yeah, they're gone. Can you imagine that? This is for the people who haven't seen AWS SSO, also known IAM Identity Center portal. That's a portal that where you would usually find the list of accounts to which you would have access, but in our case, it's empty. However, I need to do some work and I need to get access. How can I get that? Well, usually it's a quite cumbersome procedure where you need to contact someone, but we actually build open source tool to make this process quite straightforward. And I'm going to demonstrate it right now. So you would go to Slack, run the short command. You choose the duration for how long you will going to do things, and you describe what you're going to do. So I'm going to do important stuff, and I need to choose where I'm going to do it. So I'm actually going to go to production in workloads, and then I select the administration access. I request that, and now we have a request pending approval. So someone who is authorized by the tool configuration to approve needs to approve that. And you can see other approvals, the previous approval being revoked. So now anyone could please press it. Yes, Vlad did press it, and now we have the magic happening behind the scene. And now I got permissions granted, which means that I can go back to the browser and see that indeed I do have administrator access to this account, and I will have it for 3 hours as I requested. And after 3 hours, it will disappear. Hello, my name is Andrei Devyatkin. I'm one of the co-founders and the principal consultant at FivexL. And today we're going to talk more about SSO Elevator, how it works. And together with me, we have Vlad, Anton, and Guillermo. Say hello, guys.
Hello. Hello, world. So, if you are still here, it means you are impressed about what we show for you. And now we go a bit deeper inside the details, right? But
Yes,
our first idea was talk about the new features. We have some features.
Yes, so the SSO Elevator was around for, I don't know, at least 2-3 years now. We built it originally for one of the customers. So the idea of the just-in-time access is around for much longer. And in 2018, 2019, we built the first iteration of that for one of the customers using HashiCorp Vault to provision temporary access to AWS accounts. Because back then, AWS SSO wasn't available. When AWS SSO was released, we actually reimagined that and built a second private, not available as open source iteration. And then I believe in 22, when Anton came on board, we got a permission to open source it, and we built a new version that was like from scratch, like using all the ideas from before, and released it. And I think we released it in 2023, where the whole buzz about just-in-time access started to gain some traction, and AWS actually released their own open source thing called TEAM or TAME. So temporary elevated access management, I think it is. You can search for that, and you will get a solution based on AWS SSO. So I think the timing was right, and I know there are some vendors providing that, but as far as I know, there are not that many open source solutions like SSO Elevator, and we definitely see it getting some buzz and steam. Since like all our customers use that and find it incredibly useful. We go to conferences, and then people come to us, like people who we don't know, like who we never spoke of. They say like, yeah, like we use this tool, we're integrating that into our company. And we also could see that there are more issues coming in now, asking for the requests, and we are there to support. So that was a little bit of history, and that brings us to the new features we have there that Anton was working on, and Anton is one of the brains behind the tool and who put his hours and sweat into making it work as good as it does today.
You also can say with Anton who will answer the issues. So it's the real person.
Yeah.
It's not not a magic.
Most probably when you submit the issue, the first person replying it will be Anton. But the first feature that we have came as a customer request, which is a little bit of edge case that we're now adding into the next release that's going to be released today, I think the 3.0. And that's actually something that we discussed with Guilherme, and maybe Guilherme can give us a little bit of feedback and describe what a possible use case could be.
Yeah, of course. The SSO Elevator syncs the user that is requesting with the SSO users, right? So for example, if I go to a Slack channel and then I ask access to Andre, my email address will be attached to the request, and then the SSO Elevator will try to sync my mail address against AWS, right, where the users are. So once the two sites are matched, the access is granted, of course, after somebody approves my request. What happens is sometimes in your Slack, you have different users from different organizations with different domains. Let's suppose you are subscribed to Slack using a different domain because your company has two different domains for some reason, right? Maybe you're a spin-off of a bigger company, and then you're using a mail address from the big company, not the spin-off. But your AWS SSO is configured with the secondary domain. So what happens is you have a mismatch between your Slack subscription and SSO. Before the version 3.0, SSO Elevator was not able to match the two users, and then we couldn't use the SSO Elevator with companies with the situation that I just described. With the new version, now it's possible for you to configure a secondary or fallback domain, where SSO Elevator will be smart enough to check if you have a valid user with the primary domain or the secondary domain. I already tested this against one of our customers, and it works perfectly. Now the customer can grant access to people using secondary domains, and sometimes you also have external developers from different companies that are in your Slack channel, and you can also grant them access to the account. So this new version is bringing this to as a new feature, right? And bringing this live is awesome because now we can serve more customers.
And I would say we're debating a lot with this feature because understand that SSO Elevator is part of your security posture. It's a security tool. And this is a little bit of tricky logic that can potentially introduce the issues in your security posture, like the weaknesses. We've been trying to do a little bit of threat analysis or like threat modeling, how it could be exploited. As of now, we cannot really see how it could be exploited, but still we release that with a word of caution. Like when you check the variables in the Terraform model, you will see that there is like a lengthy description saying that you really want to think twice before you use that one. Like ideally, you would use one domain that as much as like your emails registered in Slack, the people from outside, maybe it's a bad idea if they like requesting, but in some cases you need it. So that feature is to support you there, but it like when you request, it will strongly discourage you from doing this. So expect that. Another feature that we have that is notification via devops, and I think that Vladimir can describe that one.
Yeah, it's true because we have a customer request. It's as you see, most of the features are appear because of someone request them. We not create something that no one wants. So in my case, customers decide that all the log which you see previously, it's supposed to be inside a private Slack channel, and it's only limited amount of people supposed to look this log. Even that, like I say, usually just approvers who is in approver list. Okay, yes, they must be inside the channel. The rest of organization they don't. So it's why we introduce like a sending results of approval process inside a DEM inside Slack, because it's become possible to use a private channel. So.
Right. Another use case for this feature, like we also faced it, but with another use case. So like imagine you have a new joiner coming in, and then the new joiner is not added to the channel where the approval flow is happening. And then those people will be in the dark about it happening, because they will not get any kind of notifications. So with this feature, SSO Elevator will also check if the person who got the permissions granted is present in the channel, and if not, that person will receive a DM. So it is useful feature for those cases as well. Anton just dropped off, which is a little bit unfortunate. I wanted to ask what other things are there. One I remember is that we did a little bit of polishing. So like the version we just demonstrated was actually showing a little bit older version. Like in the new version, you would have a different prompt where you're supposed to write things, because right now...
Yeah. It's come from, yes, it's our request, because we have a default prompt, like as if you don't specify any message, it's Slack just say write something, and one of our customers say like write something, it not sounds good, because we are going to save this inside audit logs kind of permanently for years. And developers, they see write something, okay, blah blah blah, yada yada yada, interesting things. But it means it's someone from a third party will go and audit and look inside all of his logs, and it's a bit not good if it's showed like this. So we customize the message.
So now it asks to explain the reason why you need an access. And there are a lot of small fixes that went in there, but I think those are the biggest features. And we do it as a 3.0 because this feature that sends the DM's notification requires you to update your Slack bot OAuth scope, because the application will need to have more permissions to look up if person is in a Slack channel or not. That's why we're releasing the major version, because technically it's a breaking change. However, like if you don't use this feature, I think you can just disable it, and then you might not need those scopes. So that's something that we probably will clarify in the documentation.
Yeah, whereas a feature flag for that in Terraform, you can say just send DM if user on the channel false, and that's it. If you don't like it, if you don't want it, it's optional. And I believe we update some third-party dependencies inside the model itself, like as other open source models.
Since it's a security product, we're trying to patch it as the bot suggests something, we're patching it.
Yeah.
And so this is, I think, everything we mentioned now is useful for people who are already using SSO Elevator, and we know there are many of you out there. But for people who are new to this idea, I would like to highlight a couple of use cases when it's useful. So with AWS SSO, what you're getting temporary credentials. So when you click get the key or open the session in a browser, depending on your SSO configuration, you will get the session that lasts for 8 or 12 hours, and the credentials are revoked, which means that if they are stolen, the attacker will have a limited window of opportunities to exploit it and will need to repeat the procedure again and again. However, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's a temporary credentials, but with a permanent level of access, which means that if the attacker able to log into SSO portal as you, he will always get all the access you have. So like if someone granted you production access, it will stick with you, because rarely people go back and review the access and revoke it and so on and so on. So this is how it's supposed to solve this. You can get a temporary elevated access to production, but during the normal hours of operation, you have no production access whatsoever. So that's like the main use case that we're trying to solve with this. You might have the accounts that contain PHI, PII, credit card information, everything that you need to secure. you can make it so that no one has permanent access to that, but they can get temporary access through SSO Elevator. They request, then they get permission request in Slack, and then you can actually have a discussion there in Slack as well. And I see that happening all the time. Like the approvers might ask, like, "Are you sure that's what's needed?" And time to time, people actually don't need an access, and they can discard.
For the over cases, like as Andrei mentioned, the access would stick with the person. Time to time, person change the role inside the company, and the access and permission just follow, go on top. No one revoke the old one. No one reset the user, because this is an onboarding process. It's already passed, so and no one change it. Yeah, it's true. From a security perspective, it could be a big issue because today a person do this system administrator things, cloud DevOps things, but tomorrow they migrate to be, like I said, developer or someone else in a company with a different set of permissions. And with the temporary access, there's another case. It's any kind of immutable storages in AWS. For example, for audit logs, for something inside S3, you want to achieve that no one actually touch your data at all. So this is possible with the SSO Elevator. Even a person who need to, do some administrative tasks time to time, they also don't have access. And the last one,
we should also
last one what I should mention. Yes, it's like with a temporary SSO Elevator, you have 2 points in the time where you're supposed to look for actions. When a person requests the permissions, you have a first point of time until it's revoked. So you know where to look when, actually, because time to time it's a difficult question. Will someone go to production, touch some things, but when exactly? So it could be a huge period of time. So, yeah, that's it.
I just also wanted to mention how life usually is without SSO Elevator, what people usually do. So we already mentioned those permissions that stick with you, like you might have the permanent access to production, but then that access, people would try to limit it as much as possible. So it's permanent, right? So then the security guys would say like, no, we need to lock it down as much as we can. But what SSO Elevator helps you to go with, you can have a little bit more large security model in that sense. It's a temporary access. So you can get like full admin role, and that might be fine actually, because you just get it for 30 minutes to do whatever you need to do. You still need to think about all the possible risks of what people need to do and what they can access. And maybe there are some parts of it that they're not supposed to be accessing. But what I'm saying here, you don't need to spend a lot of time trying to restrict and get it perfect. You can actually get it a little bit more, have a little bit more leeway there for developers. It enables speed because, again, they can do quickly what they need. Developers. And then finally, it helps you to avoid such thing as called as a role chaining. And that's like very typical thing that people do on AWS. So they would allow one role to assume another role, and then assume another role, and then assume another role. And this is how you jump between accounts. Like, for instance, you might have like one central account from where everyone starts, and then they would start to assume roles to get elevated access. And that is very, very hard to track what's going on there, who can assume, who cannot. And that's usually a nightmare, like for auditors, for security auditors to deal with. But like imagine you do any kind of compliance audit, the auditors come and say, look, no one has the access to production by default. And we can prove that. SSO Elevator writes the detailed audit records for each action. So like for every approval and then revocation, you will get the record on S3, then you can sync to your SIEM and start to correlating events. Exactly as Vlad said, you can correlate someone getting the event when the CloudTrail, VPC flow works. So like database access, you actually have like an entry point that you can track, and then revocation point as well. Whew. And finally, where to find it, I guess. I show the last thing here. You can go to the FivexL Terraform AWS SSO Elevator. That's a repository that you can find, and you can see all the source code. There is a ton of documentation here. There is like a previous demo that we did. There is like the flow chart of how it actually works and what are the moving pieces in there, so you can inspect it for yourself. There is a group assignment mode that was added in a version 2.0, so you can also assign not only permission set to the user, but also the groups. You can work with groups if you want. And another feature that I forgot to mention. So by default, SSO Elevator works with permission set, and it will assign it to the user directly, and it will track all other assignments and will attempt to revoke it. So this is how you can actually deal with the creep of people doing something manually. So if someone creates a manual permission set assignment to the user, AWS SSO Elevator will spot that. It will report it to Slack, and then it will revoke it eventually, not immediately. You can configure that. That's the logic on how it makes decisions and all the features description. There is quite a lot of documentation for you to check. And example of issues, we have people asking questions, and if you need any kind of software proof, let's take this one as example. There are people doing research and saying, like, look, that looks like one of the best open source options for just-in-time access to our AWS account. Not our word, so it's like people who are actually trying to use the tool saying that. And that's, you see, example of Anton being very supportive and giving a lot of information. So, like, and Anton is really great when it comes to support and communication. Be like Anton.
Okay, I think maybe any more things?
One more thing that we should mention, it's audit logs and how useful they are for the audit, when you can show that nobody has access anywhere.
I just mentioned that. And it's all available on the Terraform registry. You will get a link from the GitHub repository, or you can search in the Terraform registry. And if anything, ping us, submit an issue, we talk and support you. Thanks for tuning in.
I guess the last thing what we would like to say, if you don't want to deploy it yourself, if you think it's hard and difficult, you can always ask.
Yeah, we will figure out something together. Good. All right, thank you for tuning in, guys. Thank you for joining, contributing to the recording, and we see each other next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.